I know, I mean, you've all been in our world for quite some time, and you're also deep thinkers. And so I kind of wanted to nerd out. I kind of wanted to help people make the connection between the providence, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the providence at large, meaning like the evolution of humanity, and how high noon fits into all of this. Because when you're in something like myself, like Uncle David, like Sammy, that's all we think about. It's our world. And so sometimes I forget how not everybody thinks like me, and not everybody's kind of up to date with what we're learning and what we're downloading, because we're just focused on this. So I wanted to kind of unpack some of these topics with you so that we can plug other people into this. Yeah. So I'm just going to shut up because that's a lot of words. Um, so we have a few questions here, but if you're getting inspired, let's talk about it. We have an hour to round this up. So let inspiration hit. And the first one is, how can we accomplish the goals of the providence? That's a big question. That's a big first question. And remember, we're kind of in high noon land, right? So we don't want to get too far outside of the realm of sexuality and family and this kind of stuff. But yeah, who's got something to say? Let's go to it. Let's get into it.
Okay, well, I'll jump in, and nice to see you all. I feel like these. I think we all know there's actually four questions, and they're all very related. The goals of the providence, what an ideal society looks like, which is, of course, that's the goal of the providence, is to make an ideal society.
Got that right.
And the heavenly tradition, that is the way of life of families and government, which is, again, another way of saying the goal of the providence. And then finally, the hot chili pepper is high noon's activities that are essential to these goals. So I just scribbled down my thoughts about that.
Sure.
And well, of course, I mean, as befits the name high noon, there's no shadows. So high noon removes shadows. That take away shadows. That's what the high noon activities do. And yeah, I mean, what we want to get rid of is Satan's shadows. Is shadows of shame, of guilt, of regret, of self-accusation, etc. Get rid of those shadows. Okay.
And so, well, let me unpack that real quick, which is, people have been burdened with these shadows since the beginning, right? And so I believe that everybody here we're all conscientious people, and it does feel like a certain amount of burden is being lifted off of humanity. Yes, there's problems in this world, but I also I can see that there's like an opportunity for us to shed a lot of weight at this time. I just see people kind of resolving a lot of deep internal conflicts that they couldn't before. And so I would just like to see, would you guys be in agreement with that? Rafael, do you have, I mean, you just inherited a new role to take on even more responsibility. So you must be fairly optimistic that things are going to go well because you're not a glutton for pain, right?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes and no in a certain way. That I feel like we're in the era of transition, where we're in this era, what we call era of John Cook, we're really in the building phase of the ideal, and everything is possible to build. And doesn't matter how difficult were things in the past, what we are trying to do now we can have different outcomes today than when we did things in the past. But it doesn't mean everything is restored, and we still have obstacles, we still have problems that we run into, conflict, tensions within ourselves, in our families, in our communities, between leaders. And so we're in this, I feel like we're really in this transition phase where the not just the activities of High Noon, but the culture and the values of High Noon are so important, so that we really all kind of clean ourselves from the past so we can actually really move forward into this bright future. Chuma was talking about this year of the blue dragon, where we should leave all the past behind, and that's possible, but it's not just automatic. Yeah, we have to do it actively in our own way. I remember last year there was this 40-day grace special condition to receive the grace, and I was like, oh, do I need this again? I already did this in the past. Did I do any big mistakes? But then when I actually entered the condition, I realized, I don't have a life without shadows. Come on, Rafael. You still have, I'm not always using money exactly properly. How should it? Whether it's private or public doesn't matter. For me, it's all important, to use it in a heavenly way. Did I hurt other people's feelings? Yes, I did. I didn't do it on purpose, maybe. And so I feel like it's really important that we, that each person, and especially if you're in a position as a leader, that we are looking deep into ourselves and really trying to always improve ourselves, but not to get stuck in the past, but to leave it behind, as you were saying, and actually move forward into the future with grace. And we do this work with ourselves, and also we do it with others. We encourage others to be vulnerable, transparent, but then, of course, when they are, we need to receive that with grace and love. Otherwise, if we're just pointing out, I remember somebody was saying, oh, we shouldn't let people's mistakes in the darkness, because this is, Satan invading. It's like, yes, but it's not your job to point it out. It's their job to bring it out.
Yeah.
I was just saying recently, like, if you see people's thoughts, like mistakes, this is not genius. This is a trap. It's about you being your own mistakes, being vulnerable about that, encouraging us to do the same, and then together, building a better future. I believe that in the future, leaders, whether it's in our movement or political leaders, are vulnerable, recognizing their own mistakes and actually acknowledging the goodness in others, even like maybe a political opponent. Like, oh, he has such a great idea, and I did such a bad job there. I'm waiting for that guy to vote for him. And that's this high noon culture, actually. So I can see it both in our movement, in our lives, and in politics and everywhere, being such an important thing.
Yeah, thank you. Uncle Dave, you just went to a workshop about the Blue Dragon, the era of the Blue Dragon. There's a tour going on in America. And so I know that you are, in terms of like the highway, you're in one lane, it's the high noon lane. And like, that's where your thoughts and everything is, because that's where you care so much about. So as you were downloading this information about the Providence, how are you seeing the kind of meeting point between what you were hearing and what you know to be high noon?
Yeah, as Rafael was sharing, I was wondering, have I hurt your feelings today yet, Andrew?
Yes, all the time, Uncle Dave. That's you help.
I don't know if you guys know, but he's very sensitive.
Yeah, you help me grow so much, Uncle Dave. I love it.
I went to Mitzi and I went to the Blue Dragon tour week before. 2 weeks ago. And so one thing I was very inspired by was, there were 4 pillars of the new providence. And whether it's a new providence or the old providence, one thing that I'm very sure about in my life is that the core of the universe never changes. I doubt very seriously that Mother will come out with a new providence and say, well, guys, the sexual organ is no longer the core of the universe. Sorry. We don't need it. It's just a thing, I'd be very surprised if that happened. But one of the pillars of the new providence is that Mother said we must nourish the second generation and get rid of shadows. I think that we always realized that, but until Mother said it, I think some leaders were in denial. Maybe just they didn't think it was something important to track. But now the Mother has mentioned it. It's like now we can say, oh, okay, second gen good, shadows bad. and that's enough for me. I think that's really great. It allows us to focus on the qualitative aspect of our community and on the culture of our community. That's really what High Noon is good at. I feel is changing the culture of our community to be more like a community, and especially in this area of sex, it's so important that we live in community, that we have somebody like, we just came out of a couple's sex after 60, sex in your 60s session. And it's important to have couples or people in our life that are older than us. And I do go to older men and I'll ask them some advice, and also people younger than us. And it's just so important, this community aspect that High Noon is so good at creating.
Yeah.
Very important, because that's really I think that it's one of the most precious things that true parents bequeath to us is community. I know that second gen, that's what they feel. You ask them what they feel, what connects them to the church. Lineage, not so much. Divine principle, maybe. Community, definitely the sense of second gen, that they're all second gen, and the sense of being part of a community that's building something much greater than we are, something that nobody else in the world is trying to build.
Well, I feel the need to talk to a second gen about that, to validate that. Peter, Nylén, is that true? Is community a big deal?
A community is very important. It's very important. It's interesting because now I was in South Africa. I came back yesterday.
Oh,
and
wow.
They're back to Sweden, that is, and South Africa and Sweden have similarities where the older, wiser generation, I like to call them, the first generation, for them, witnessing is very much the truth, right? And true parents, well, for second gen, when they witness, they want to share their values, they want to share their community, they want to share love in this regard, and have fun and do activities. And so this is a very, very important point for second gen, surely, and young people in general, our generation now, so to say.
And since you've been in our world for a little bit, do you feel like High Noon, the culture of High Noon, has helped in community building?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, to me, High Noon has always been integral with integrity. And when we lose integrity, when we are afraid of speaking the truth, and we have the divine principle, we have incredibly amazing, beautiful values. They shine a bright light, and if we're not careful, that light can create a lot of shadows. My friends outside the church are much more comfortable talking about pornography than we are in my community, because it's quite a tough topic because of the values we do have. So, but it's not just this area of pornography or anything like that, but it's truth in how we love each other. Are we asking each other how are you today, for example? I found that we don't really ask the difficult questions. We're not trying to find the truth always. We're not trying to go that extra mile to care for each other, which is really community. We've entered into this lull state of attendance is more important than love, right? And it's more of a duty than it is of desire from our true love and our true character and personality. And I feel that High Noon does an excellent job in really allowing us to have integrity. And then we start asking ourselves, what does God really want from me in my life? Because it's all aspects of my life. It's not just at church, but it's at home in the evenings, it's at work. Do I live with God all the time or not? That's how High Noon has manifested itself in my life. And
thanks, bro.
It's been very helpful.
I feel like I paid you to give that response, but I promise I did not on my life.
We'll get to that.
He is not a shareholder in this company. Dr. Hendricks, I really feel like I remember you going on this really nice monologue one time when we were speaking, and I was in awe because you had put a lot of thought into heavenly traditions and families and communities and this. And one thing that came out in the previous hour was really the idea that the topic of Chanuguk and the topic of Heavenly Parent, and like the future, building the future, and the topic of sex are never in the same conversation typically. So it's kind of like we're trying to build this beautiful future without addressing the reality of sexuality, right? So in terms of heavenly traditions, I was and Daniela was talking about how she checks up regularly with her adult son about his sex life. He's 27 now, but I felt like that was coming from a very natural place in her, just to want to connect on her son. They don't just focus on that, but it's a big part of his life, and like, why not, right? So in terms of, I think we can conclude that Hunduke is going to be a part of our movement and this kind of stuff. But how do you see the tradition of addressing sexuality within the family as we progress into a new society, a new heaven and a new earth?
Yeah, thank you. Well, to me, David brought up sex organs and lineage and community. And community, I love community, but in my latter years now, I've finally come to understand lineage. And the sex organs create lineage. I came from my parents' sex organs, and my children came from my and my wife's sex organs. That's lineage. So I think if God can dwell in our sex organs, God can dwell in our lineage. I believe that the revelation of Heavenly Parent, meaning Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, Heavenly Parent, the Trinity, I believe that the sexual relationship of Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother actually gave birth to Heavenly Parent and to heavenly children, that the universe came from sex. I mean, that atoms and molecules are having sex. They are sexual entities, plus and minus. Is right there on the first page of Principle of Creation. So we are you guys are by pulling the shadows, blowing away the shadows, are revealing the essence of God. And I remember, and the essence of life, and the essence of love, life, lineage. And lineage is eternal. Community is good, is fantastic. I love it. But lineage is eternal. Actually, God said, Father said once, that God started, the essence of the Logos is the sexual organs. Man, woman, sexual organ. This is where God wants to dwell. You guys all know this. Anyway, creates lineage, and lineage is eternal. And I think and lineage builds community. Sure. That if you have strong filial piety, hyojung, with your parents, and that's also the key to sexual purity, sexual abstinence for unmarried people, is filial piety, is the power of the hyojung to their parents, which the vertical axis there. Okay, I'll stop with that.
Yeah, so a case for lineage. I mean, it's definitely, I think it's far bigger than we can possibly comprehend. I get glimpses of how ignorant I am every once in a while, because we talk about this stuff a lot, love, life, lineage, this kind of stuff, very casually. But to know that you can create the future, and that the idea that sexuality is the one place where the past, present, and future can exist at the exact same moment. The future comes through you, and the past is coming through you in that present moment, and you transcend time and space. It's like it's so big that we can't fathom it, but in terms of community, and let's bridge those two things, right? So I would love to talk to a community leader. So Rafael, your whole gig right now is to create a sense of family and community, right? In terms of France, I'm guessing, right? You would love a vibrant country where that's thriving spirits. And then there's also the reality of interpersonal, like husband, wife difficulties, right? And so how much does one impact the other? The quality of community and the quality of marriages, and which one to focus on first? Or how are you addressing that? You're kind of coming from both angles, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question. You definitely need to broach all angles. I just reflect about the first 3 months as leadership here in France, and I realized that there's so many things you need to take care of, and they're all important. And so I was like, okay, where do you start? What do you focus on? And definitely, what I realized is that what is really important is to kind of more important than what do you focus on is how you focus on it. Like what kind of energy you are in there, with what kind of mindset you are in there. Are you fully present? Are you being authentic? Are you being vulnerable? Are you being loving with people? So whatever project or actually speaking you focus on, that's really what's really important. And yeah, definitely. I was reflecting about this question about the couple. So I've had different leadership position with my wife's support, and I definitely when we are not united as a couple, then definitely I can see the impact of our leadership. And or even when you pretend to be doing well and you're struggling, it's very difficult to move forward and actually have a positive impact around you. And we're talking about intimacy, and even intimacy is such a important aspect of being really united. Where we recently had a family women's federation event, and we're talking about feminine leadership and how we're in the era of women, not just parents are saying it, but even in society, we're open to feminine leadership. And I realized that the couple unity is such an important aspect, whether it's women leaders or even if it's still men leaders, how much they're connected with their wives while doing their leadership. How much they're connected in that feminine energy as well, through intimate relationships and things like this. How much do they ask for their input, and things like this. So on this point, I really feel like the couple relationship is so important. And so that's why I feel like so beautiful in our community is that we always normally see that it's not just the one person leading, it's the couple who is leading. Of course, one person is maybe doing more the job than the other one, but still it's something you do as a couple. And then we really try to focus on community, and as was shared for most of the second gen and third gen, community is much more important. So recently we traveled to Paris for some events, and so we had a big transition for the pastors for the Paris community pastor transition. Then we had the Women's Fed event, and then we had an event for young families. You know what event it was? Easter egg hunt. Just a simple Easter egg hunt, and the church center was crowded. It was packed.
Yeah.
But if you ask him, if we ever organized a conference about lineage, no matter how important it is, I'm not sure if we would have gathered so many families,
Sure.
And so, but that's what brings the people together, and that's where people actually experience also this ideal we're talking about, because it's great to have lineage. We need lineage to build the ideal, but if you don't experience the ideal as a community, as an extended family, then people is like, so what's the point of lineage? I was born in this lineage, but I'm not experiencing this channel guk, here, right now. And so so that's definitely a big focus, and it's not easy, because there, as we say, there can be struggles in the couple and the family, also in the community. It's like an extended family. So even when we did the transition for the leadership position in the Paris community, we went from one leader to a team. And some people were like, "Oh, your team? Are you sure? We used to have central figures." So there was a lot of challenges. And then some people didn't like a person in the team, or some people had the struggles with a person in the team. So there was a lot of conversations, very open and vulnerable and authentic conversations, and also asking people to, give people a chance, to give people second chances as well, because they were pointing out mistakes from the past and things like this. So I can really see how in this community building, the couple relationship, the individual relationships are so important. You can't really actually separate them completely.
Yeah, that's really important, right? Again, because I think a lot of people who think in boxes, that high noon is for people who have this problem, and then the rest of us, we're okay, we don't need to talk to them. When in fact, you apply the high noon culture into any aspect of your life, and it's going to become brighter, right? It's like a template. It's a model for how to have difficult conversations, how to get past your shadows, how to remove the shadows and put God in the center, right? So Peter, you, again, I want to say welcome to the club. You're recently blessed. You got a ring on your finger?
I don't. I actually
Ooh.
it's too small, so I can't wear it. Yeah.
It's too small, or you just were on vacation too long and now it doesn't fit? Which one, Peter?
Well, it's getting a bit too personal here. I don't know. This is no, it really is too small.
Okay.
But I mean, honestly, since you're asking, we also like the traditional ring, so we are looking into how we can order the traditional one. We like that.
No pressure. I was just gonna do one of these.
Yeah.
But are you still the leader of Sweden? Yes. Okay. So now, as a newly blessed man, can you see any changes in how you show up as a leader? I know it's brand new. You just got back yesterday from your honeymoon, but at the same time, how you're thinking about your future and the future of your community, is it different now that you are now not Peter, but you are now blessed Peter? You're a couple now. Has anything changed yet? Have you felt that change yet?
Yeah, no, absolutely. For me, I felt it already way back when we got matched. That's when I was like, oh, okay, this is different. And I mean, when I was asked to become national leader the first time, I refused it twice because I said, I'm not blessed. It doesn't make any sense, right? For me, from the principle, you learn the different realms of love through being in a couple, being a parent, being son and daughter, etc., right? And I felt my love was limited because I hadn't been in a couple. And to give my compliment, to give my community some compliments, they could accept me regardless, and they could compliment me in the love which I was lacking by we also have a team to work together. But absolutely, it feels different. Also, my approach to things, thinking about the future, the whole reason why I became national leader was initially because I wanted a community for my children, and it's hard to have children without a wife. And so now that those steps are coming into place closer and closer, right?
Yeah. The walls are closing in, man. That's great. Yeah. Uncle Dave, I guess this is a question about the power of somebody who's tasted love, right? So when somebody is in a leadership position, they could be a church leader, community leader in their job, whatever. Have you seen people who felt weak because of sex and because of, they have these shadows, grow into leadership because these shadows are cast aside and now they have a newfound power? Have you seen this happen?
Well, actually, since we have a newly minted husband who's just have you recently tasted love, Peter?
Yes.
Well, why don't you answer that question? Do you feel more powerful now?
I'm definitely, yeah, I would say so. I feel more round. The world makes more sense. I know it doesn't have to be that wholesome, but yeah, it does make much more sense. And I very much hope for me and my wife to do everything together. Also, me being national leader, and so now it's us, and it's much more powerful. As everything is coming slowly falling into place.
Slowly, yeah.
Slowly. I'm saying expecting more. So things have fallen into place, but I expect more to make sense as time goes on.
Nice. So I wanna put something out here. It's a phenomenon that I've noticed, and I'd love to see if you guys have experienced it. And that is something very clear, which is the byproduct of a bunch of people living with a certain level of intentionality, right? So in our programs, we ask people to uphold certain values because that is the air that will create the freedom, right? So like honesty, accountability, grace, integrity, courage. Those are the 5 High Noon virtues. And what happens is when we ask people to prioritize those virtues every day, and so they get accountability partners, or they have weekly calls, or even if they're just listening to our podcast and they're practicing, it obviously benefits them to prioritize those things, right? And that's just kind of a no-brainer. If you live a more virtuous life, you're going to have better enjoyment, fulfillment in your life. Okay. But what I wasn't anticipating necessarily, and I'm noticing, is that when you have a community of people like that, it becomes the cultural norm that these virtues, these values are what connect us and make us powerful and allow for the subsequent. What I'm experiencing is the culture of Chanoguk, where we just naturally feel like we can talk about anything, and all the shadows, the idea of shadows kind of works. But if you have a community, like you were saying, Rafael, it's like a community is like a family. Any shadows in the community is like a wall between people's hearts. And that's when they start throwing grenades at each other. It's when you have gossip. It's when you have all these fights, right? So what I'm observing is just we weren't trying to solve for community experience. We were trying to help individuals with their issues, but we were doing it together as a community. And the result was a community that is experiencing a shift. And for lack of a better explanation, it just feels like Chanoguk is emerging out of an intentional group of people living a certain way. It's obviously because of conditions. True parents open the door. There's spiritual stuff happening, but the substantive, I don't know if that's the word, the things that we can control, the things within our realm of control, are clearly making a difference and allowing people to experience love in a way that I just heard last week, somebody was like, the reason I join High Noon groups is because I don't feel this open and free in my own home, let alone my own church community. It's the one place where I can really be fully 100% myself, and I know I'll be accepted every time, day in and day out. And so I wanted to kind of address that cultural phenomenon that I'm noticing that really became apparent in the past few months, and now is just shouting at me. And I wanted to know if you have experienced it, and if you could maybe give me an example or something that you've seen, something that you've observed in the nature of people transforming because of the culture.
Well, I think, Andrew, that the enemy of community are shadows. And our community is a very idealistic community. We believe in true parents. We believe in Cheonggil Guk. We're pursuing the ideal. And unfortunately, that's caused us to feel like we have to pretend that everything is okay, pretend that we're perfect. Well, we're not. We're obviously not, you know. And that pretending that we're perfect is the, you know, it is like good is the enemy of great. It keeps us from being great.
I see. So it's allowing us to stop pretending, which doesn't, I think in the short term is painful because you have to admit that you're not perfect, and you have to, I heard one testimony from a guy in Ukraine, and they, you know, in Ukraine, that before this disaster out there, they would meet up as a community in a circle, and they would talk about their problems as couples in front of other couples. And there's one guy that finally came out at the end. He's like, look, guys, I just want to say, you know, I'm really not that perfect. I'm not what you guys think I am. And then apparently everybody just laughed. They're like, nobody thought you were perfect. It was like, what are you talking about? Right. But it was just this sense of relief that he, you know, he just finally like showed himself. And so it seems like everybody's kind of looking for that, but it is painful in the short term, and it's so valuable in the long term. And so I guess, yeah, please, Rafael.
Yeah, I can share some examples. You were asking about examples of this happening, this culture.
Yeah.
I actually remember the first time I met you was in 2019. You came to Europe for a workshop, and you had some small seminar there, High-Noon seminar. I remember we had a conversation around the table, and then one elder first gen, he was with us. We're mostly second gen, and he was like, I'm so impressed how you guys feel so free to be vulnerable, to share about your doubts, your mistakes. He's like, I can't do it. I want to, but it's like so already it seems like something happened thanks to, you know, the blessing and the education that, and I hope the future generations is going to be even better and better to feel more free, you know. And I grew up, I felt a lot imprisoned sometimes by this culture of pretending to be perfect. You know, I remember I was talking to my cat, and I was like, yeah, we're not that ideal family, you know, that we are talking about. You know, we're just fighting. You at least not fighting with me, you know, talking to my cat, you know, as a teenager. So, but it is happening. And, you know, what I love, for example, that I like to develop in meetings now, and I see it more and more, is, for example, having check-ins at the beginning. I'm sure I know you have that. I learned it from Project Phoenix. You know, that at the beginning of the meeting, instead of just jumping into the agenda, we share how we feel, what's the energy we're bringing into the meeting, what's a highlight from the week or a challenge from the past week. And that brings that culture of vulnerability and authenticity. And also, I recently started doing, like the former national leader, I do a weekly video guidance to all members in France. But actually, I do also some updates from what happened in the week. And I always try to be very vulnerable about certain processes I'm going through, challenges, ups and downs I go through the week, doubts I have, questions I have, difficulties I have, and how I overcome them. And people are always like, wow, Rafael, you're so authentic. And I'm like, oh, I thought that's just being normal. And people are like, wow, you're sharing this stuff with everyone. It's like,
it's funny, Rafael, you were mentioning about that conversation around the table. I remember that very clearly. Andrew and Sammy and I think the Perrys were having a conversation at one end, and you and I were having a conversation at the other. And I was asking you about your goals. And you mentioned just you have goals around in the area of sex. And I asked you, Rafael, what goals do you have in the area of sex? And all of a sudden, the conversation at the other end of the table stopped, and your ears were being stretched. And you were so open. You just so openly shared about your goals in that area. And
he found his people.
Beautiful, anyway.
Yeah, well, that's the thing of the reticence in our heart to withhold information, right? Like the reluctance to be free. There's if you ask people, and I started this experiment, it's a very unofficial experiment, but I remember asking, I was a pastor 2 times, and both times I would ask kind of a lot of people, different demographics, very detailed questions about Channel Guk. I'm like, because I want to know, like, is anybody actually taking this seriously? It's like, you know, who paves the roads? And people are like, I don't know, like robot, I don't know, somebody, I don't know. They haven't thought a lot about the details because we haven't allowed ourselves to really fully believe in it, because it's kind of like, to have belief, you have to let go of your fears and your doubts and all of your baggage, right? But it's also scary to believe, and I think that's kind of, it's scary for a lot of people when they're going from a place of addiction to believe that their life is going to change, especially if they've tried and failed before. They didn't get the results they were looking for. They don't want to be hurt again, because there's pain to your ego, or there's, the feeling of failure if you don't get there. So I think a lot of people even withhold dreaming or taking seriously the fact that we are meant to transition to a world beyond this. And it's quite scary for most people, because they think that new is bad, because they're preparing for the worst, because they haven't accepted that. Anyway, I think this is going a little bit, but what I'm talking about is more just the process of, like, what you're talking, like Rafael just opening up. I do remember that too. I remember the food. Aunt Sylvia, her food was, Sylvie, her food was the best. And that conversation was amazing. And it was because we found one of our own, which is just somebody with an open heart and open mind, just speaking freely. Like, that's where we live. And so it's just so much faster. Like, I think a long time ago, there's a sermon from Ingenim talking about love is faster than the speed of light, or something. Like, I think True Father talked about that. It's instantaneous in spirit world, and it's our reluctance, and it's our fear, and it's our shadows that slow down the bandwidth of love, right? So that freedom is kind of what we're looking for, but it does take some work, because, like you're saying, Raphael, I'm sure when you ask people to check in, sometimes they tell you stuff that you probably don't want to hear. It's kind of difficult. It's not always pleasant, but it's like maybe a short-term pain for long-term gain kind of situation. Dr. Hendricks, I saw you nodding when I was talking about the love is faster than the speed of light. Do you have anything to say about the idea of, like, the emergence of Chanuguk? I feel like you've given this a lot of thought. You're working on, I believe, the Constitution for a while. So you were really, like, looking at the details and thinking about the details of how this is actually going to play out. So we're living in a very unideal world, and we're trying to emerge into something else. Do you often allow yourself the opportunity to imagine a kind of healthy world? Yeah.
I imagine a lot. My imagination in Father's words, and Father said that the family is the true family. True family is the core and the model of Chanuguk. And Chanuguk, or even before he used the word Chanuguk, the ideal, the heavenly kingdom, whatever, is the expansion of the family, from the family to the clan to the tribe, hometown, etc. So you've got to. So it's all. If you know the word fractals.
Yeah.
Every level you see the same thing, and it's the model of the family. It's a 3-generation, four position foundation, 3-generation family. And I've been, I have one, and then the next step is the clan, because once your kids are blessed or married, then you're immediately a clan, and you're dealing with the in-laws. And how do you organize a clan on the foundation of a family is really important. Okay, so that's enough theory, but the practical application, I believe that our Sunday services should be run by high noon.
I like where you're going. Keep going.
In the world. We're following a failed model, and that is Protestantism. It's not going anywhere. You sit down, you listen to a sermon, you listen to some people sing. Oh, I like that rock music. Now I see I think I'm getting from Rafael and Peter that things are loosening or communityizing in Europe, and same thing in America. There's a lot more in Sunday service, a lot more horizontal give and take, if you will, which is, and it's pushed by second gen young leaders. I think that is good, but I think that horizontal give and take should be within families. I think that the most important communication and the most difficult one is between husband and wife. And then and equally important is between parents and children. Vital and extremely difficult. It's easier for me to sit down with my community friends than with my wife and have an honest conversation. And I think that our Sunday services, when everybody has to attend, should just have that. And Father said this, we won't have sermons in the future. There won't be sermons. He once said, do you really like worship? Yeah, I said, quite a rhetorical question. Yeah, and I think it should be, he said, families should give testimonies, and families with struggles should give testimony, should share, and then talk to each other. But and that's in the community, in the group. But I think it should break down, and 1 week it should be between husband and wife. It should be, we sit together as a family. Sunday schools, where is it? I have a book about family-centered church. Anyway, Sunday schools separate parents and children. That's not good. It's called age segregation. Parents and children are separated by schools, by work, by sports, by everything. At least on Sunday morning, you can be with your family. That's the way it was traditionally, until the great Protestant idea of Sunday schools. And now you go to church and bye-bye, kids. Oh, yeah, somebody else is going to teach my kids. Yeah, you take care of my kids, okay? Teach them about Jesus or true parents, and I'll just listen to some preacher that puts me to sleep. Okay. So put the family together in church, and not just sitting together, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Create an atmosphere. 1 week, it's husband, wife, and the children are listening. The children are watching. And you create an atmosphere where husband and wife can talk to each other with God's protection somehow. And it won't happen all at once, but you're going to do it every other week. And on the alternative week, it's going to be parents and children talking to each other. How's it go this week? What did you do? Oh, I saw you were upset. Did you have a problem in school? Or Dad, I saw you, were upset at Mom, and you'd get to that level, and everybody's doing it at the same time. And if you can do it in Sunday, and there's coaching. I think family counseling, the pastor's number one job is family counseling, marriage counseling, parenting is counseling. In the good Catholic tradition, when it works, the priest is actually a counselor. He's getting the confessions of the people, and he's giving them guidance.
Nice.
Parents are supposed to be priests to their children, and we have to learn that. We've got to learn, because until we can make coherent, strong families, we're not going to. Channel cook is just a fantasy. We've got to build families, and then we expand.
I love it. I've never seen you so fired up. Great.
Really?
No, that's not true. It
was when I was giving my confession at high noon.
No, that's beautiful, and it's very apt. It's definitely, that's what we're talking about, is we're somehow people's adopted families, and we're honored that people trust us to be that, but it's not ideal, right? We would love for high noon, Uncle David said it, so I can say it. We would love for the day where high noon is not needed anymore, because things are being taken care of within the family, right?
And church is not needed anymore, too.
Yeah, we're putting everybody out of business here. Watch out.
It's true.
Yeah, but it's, that's what a healthy family looks like. And so we're practicing being that. So we are kind of in need of
Can
wrapping
I
up.
just interrupt before you wrap up?
Whoa,
I'd
yeah.
love it if High Noon would, maybe you're doing this. I've been out of touch. I've been living in Korea. Made programs for husbands and wives. I mean, pretty much until now, it's individual centered. Here's my problems. I've confessed and help me out.
Yeah.
Make programs for husbands and wives to get, okay. To
Thank
talk,
you,
be able
yeah.
to talk and work.
Yes, we are.
You guys are great. You guys are the model. Andrew, I've never seen your wife on the screen. Of course, I've not been around. Maybe she's there, but okay.
She's on fire. She's going to Korea. You'll see her soon. We're going to visit you. We're going to knock on your door, man.
Yeah. Slap me in the face.
No. We'll bring pie. Don't worry. So, first of all, yeah, thank you all so much for this time. I didn't really know where it was going to go, but I really got a lot of value out of that. And I just wanted to leave a window of opportunity for if there's anything unresolved that you wanted to say, a point that you wanted to make, or something, briefly. We don't have that much time, but is there anything, or forever hold your peace? Amen.
I'd like to add something. This concept, I'd like to reiterate perhaps, and maybe re-emphasize this point about the shadows in the community. Right. I think it's only by confronting that does that give actually space to improve things. And I've seen that in my community where we haven't had too big shadows, right? But the ones we shine light on, just naturally something else takes its place, and it's very beautiful, and it creates so much love and trust. And so that is really, and it starts from everyone, right? My best sermons have been when I'm talking about my broken blessing and all of that, right? That's that real vulnerability, and people feel that. You see them cry, it's real. So that can happen once you confront the shadows, and it takes everyone in the community, but it starts with someone, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's real leadership. Rafael was touching on that. You're touching on that. We need to definitely have a renaissance of a new leadership, heavenly leadership, and it's not having all the answers, and it's not being perfect. It's here's what I can kind of show is the byproduct of 9 years of trying to figure this out is, first of all, you doing it and teaching other people how to, first of all, create an ideal. What is an ideal for yourself? We do it in 3 months, and then creating a community of people that to support you in remembering what your ideals are and to get towards those ideals. That's how you build a lot of love, because it takes a lot of guts to say, this is the person that I want to be. Can you help me get there? And here's where I fall short, and here's my victories. Can we celebrate together? Can we commiserate together? That's a community that's unstoppable, because you're clear on where you want to go and you're clear on where you're at, and then getting there is the fun. But you cannot do it. We try to fudge the numbers. We try to take shortcuts, and it just doesn't work. So I think you're right, Dr. Hendricks. I just got a tattoo. In the brief time that we've been here, I got a tattoo that says High Noon should just take over all of Sunday service everywhere. I will take that to the bank all day. I'm going to Korea. I'll do a protest or something.
Just start here.